On this episode, we talk with Dr. Soraj Hongladarom about the intersection of Buddhist ethics and artificial intelligence.
So if you've ever wondered what our soon-to-be robot overlords would be like if they were Buddhist, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 on a vacation and can't leave because the place I rented my scooter from still has my passport and won't give it back until I replace the broken blinker.
I hate when that happens, man.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago. Fell in love with trying to find new memes every year for how freaking hot it is during the Thai summer, so I never left.
That's a good one. Because how many times can I use that one that has like Earth and then Bangkok and then the sun?
That's right. It's like I catch myself reusing memes that I used the year before, so I'm looking for new ones.
Right. Yeah. There's another one for Canada Day that I've used a few too many times, and I think it's a beaver riding a Canadian goose, and it's like holding up to like two maple leaves and screaming. Or
I saw.
Like
okay,
that.
yeah, I've seen that. But right, you can't use that every year, man.
I need some new ones. I gotta get some AI to generate some stuff in here. Like,
it's a good idea. Alrighty, we want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Tom Grogan, who supports us at the show shadow level. Stick around after we're done talking about the intersection of Thai Buddhism and artificial intelligence to hear why our listeners may think that Greg and I are actually the OG Bangkok podcasters, but in reality, we actually have to humbly hand that crown to Tom.
Yeah.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons like Tom also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Thailand wanting to build a new skyscraper that's even taller than Dubai's Burj Khalifa, a small move to legalize medical opium and magic mushrooms, some of the surprisingly cynical documentaries my students made about religious rituals in Thailand, and a protest by Thais in Korea who are angry that Thais working illegally in Korea were arrested. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Totally. And as always, if you have a comment, show idea, or just want to say hi, head to bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail, and we'll play it on the show. Alrighty then, on this episode, we are going to go a little bit highbrow and again dig into a topic that might not be the first on the mind of anyone thinking about Thailand, and that is a question of how does Thai culture and Buddhism influence ethics, and especially how would that manifest itself when we start talking about things like artificial intelligence? Now, for instance, you may have heard that AI and other human-created computer programs inherently take on the biases of the coders who create them. So we got to thinking, how would, say, ChatGPT define ethical behavior if it was coded in Thailand? To answer that, we are joined by the esteemed Dr. Soraj Hongladarom, former director of the Center for Ethics of Science and Technology at Chulalongkorn University, and now a professor at Mahachulalongkorn Ratchawityalaya University. Ooh, that's a mouthful. He is the author of such books as The Ethics of AI and Robotics, a Buddhist Viewpoint, and The Online Self, Externalism, Friendship, and Games. Now, Ed, I read both of those this afternoon. They're pretty good. Of course, I'm just kidding. I could barely understand the titles of those books, but I digress. So here is my very enlightening discussion on ethics, Buddhism, and AI with Dr. Soraj Hongladarom. Well, I'm very happy to welcome to the show Dr. Soraj Hongladarom. I hope I said that properly. I think I maybe have mispronounced it a little bit, but Kun Soraj, welcome to the Bangkok Podcast.
Yeah, nice to be here. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for taking time over Songkran to talk to me. Now, it's interesting to have you on the show because one of the things we do at the podcast is we like to talk about things about Bangkok that maybe not everyone knows about. For instance, we did a recent show with someone from GISTA, the Geoinformatics and Space Technology Department, Development Agency, sorry. And I think not a lot of people would know about that if they think about Thailand. It's beaches and temples and things like that. And
Yeah.
another thing that I thought was interesting is your area of expertise, which is sort of, I'm going to probably guess here, but sort of technology and cultural anthropology or something like that. Can you talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, my background is in philosophy, and I've been teaching philosophy for more than 30 years. I graduated with a PhD in philosophy from Indiana University in the US, and that was a long time ago. That was in 1991. And it was kind of a technical area in philosophy, early modern Western philosophy. But when I came back here, I found it rather difficult to continue working in that area. So I ended up talking with a lot of people in different areas, like medical doctors, journalists, professors, law professors, and so on. So my interests then became quite broad. And now I used to be director of the Center for Science, Technology, and Society. Uh, I am retired officially from Chulalongkorn University, but I'm still quite active in doing research. So, yeah, philosophy and science in society, technology in culture.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area, and I'm a huge nerd on this stuff myself. So I'm really looking forward to chatting. But specifically, I saw your name come up on an email from the Siam Society, where you're going to be giving a talk on AI, artificial intelligence ethics, and how they apply to Thailand. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. So, broadly defined, I mean, ethics are the rules that govern a person's behavior. But of course, they vary between cultures, religions, countries, generations, etc. So, are AI ethics similar in that regard, or do they follow the same basic outline of how the average person would define ethics?
Yeah, basically, in philosophy, ethics is a branch of philosophy. What we do is, as you said, we try to find, what kind of action is ethical, permissible to do, and what kind of action is kind of not allowed. And certainly, there are cultural differences, but in philosophy, we tend to go deeper than that. We tend to look at the theory behind all these kind of judgments. For example, we try to find out what makes an action a good one, for example. And philosophers have a lot of theories for that. So my work is, as you said, to look at the contribution from basically from Buddhism to the global discussion on the ethics of AI. And for AI, it has spread all around the world. The technology is now, we can say commonplace. And people from different cultures tend to have different ideas regarding AI. So basically, what I am doing is to kind of to contribute to this global dialogue on ethical regulations of AI from the Buddhist perspective.
Right.
Yeah. When it comes to the question about sameness or differences among culture, there are many levels. At one level, we tend to agree pretty much, no matter from what culture we are. We basically every culture agrees that honesty is a good thing, and if you cheat someone, that's a bad thing. You go to every culture, they tend to agree on that regards.
Right.
Truthfulness, you say something truthful, and it's praised in all cultures, and they almost always tend to look at people who say false things. It's a bad thing to do. So
Yeah.
at that level there are agreements, but when it comes to kind of more specific action, then we can find differences, and that is also the same with AI also. So we want AI to be truthful. I mean, no matter what that means, we don't want AI to kind of deceive us, and that is pretty much kind of universal. But when it comes to more specific things like how much personal information should AI be allowed to hold, in return for something, useful or whatever, then we can find, and we find, there are differences, and that's why we are having this global discussion going on.
Right, exactly. Well, it's a very good time to have it because, of course, AI has just exploded. It's everywhere, and it's only going to get more ubiquitous, I think. So, how I sort of tend to think of it is that traditionally, and maybe that's changing, but historically, coding and AI and all these giant tech companies have largely been Western based and Western funded. And I think a lot of the Western cultures are Judeo-Christian, based on sort of like the Ten Commandments and the 7 deadly sins and things like that. But that's not universal, right? So if you asked someone from the West, well, how do you define ethics? And they would say, oh, well, you don't do these things and these things. But if you ask someone from Thailand, they might have a totally different basis for arriving at those conclusions. So how would a Thai person playing video games or writing code or watching YouTube or writing AI, how would a Thai person have a different view of how to embed ethics into that than a Western view?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I've been teaching ethics for quite some time, as you know, and this question almost always tends to come up. What I teach, according to the curriculum that I must follow, is Western ethics. So it's part of the program because the program I've been teaching is Western based. So we teach theories based on the familiar Western theories like Kantian theories or utilitarianism and so on. So there is kind of a difference between the mindset of what what my students have been brought up to believe on the one hand, and these Western systems on the other. For example, the idea of equality and rule of law. These come from the West, and it takes some time for my students to kind of appreciate. But once they do, they understand and they appreciate those ideas. My take on this, for example, equality and human rights and rule of law, and then we can come back to AI ethics later because we are talking more generally at this time.
Okay.
These ideas, human rights and so on, even though they first appeared in Europe, I mean, this is a historical fact. That does not mean that the foundation for these ideas are entirely European, and I have been arguing this for quite some time. In fact, we can find a foundation for these ideas in Buddhist thought. And my Chinese colleagues have found their own foundation for these ideas in Confucian thought or in Taoist thought. So, which points to the idea that perhaps these are the human things, because we are all human beings, and as a result, we should value equality. So when we talk about the Thai students, it's sitting in front of their computer doing their own things with the computer. Ethics is a kind of a norm, something that you should adhere to, you should follow, right?
Right.
And a norm only works in a community. If you live alone, like Robinson Crusoe in an island, you don't need ethics, but when you live with someone else, from two people up, you need ethics. You need some kind of agreement as to what must be done, what is forbidden,
Sure.
and so on. So the fact of the matter is that the internet and AI and this global computer network, they spans the globe. There is a kind of a global community, and then the norms that govern this community tend to be something that must be kind of negotiated. So it's not the question of some part of the world, such as Europe, exporting or imposing their own views on the other sides of the world. Could be like that for a period of time, especially in the past, where there was big disparity in power between the Europeans and non-Europeans. We are talking in the Thai context about the gunboats from Britain and France coming to the coming up the Chao Phraya River, and they were harassing the Thai authorities. But that happened in the 19th century. Right now, we have countries like China and Japan, and they have asserted themselves in technological field. And Thailand being a smaller country, we tend to be diplomatic, and we look at where the wind blows. This is a typical Thai culture. Maybe a bit of Thai history.
Sure.
So the global geopolitics is such that it is not exactly possible anymore for one region of the world to kind of have their own way in all the times and so on. Many of my colleagues in the US and in Europe, they want to find some alternatives to their own Western-based system of thinking.
Okay.
And they have found that Buddhism, for example, can offer such an alternative. So there's a giving and taking. Not only that, we in the non-West must follow the West all the time.
So when Western philosophers or coders or AI developers are looking to Buddhism, what are they trying to import or learn from Buddhism to implement?
Well, we are talking about ethics, especially AI ethics, right? And AI ethics is about what AI should do or should refrain from doing,
Right.
for what reasons. What the coder should learn is that they cannot just lock themselves away in their room and doing their own codings as if they exist in a vacuum. There are some basic principles in AI ethics that pretty much everybody around the world agree on. I have mentioned like truthfulness, honesty, right? And there are other principles like protection of human dignity.
But like Western ideals, sort of like all men are equal and no one person is better than the other person. I mean, generally speaking, those are pretty accepted. But I think in countries like Thailand and other Asian countries, maybe that some people might not agree with that 100%. I mean, there's countries like India, there's the caste system and things like that. So when a Thai person looks at how a Westerner would define these sort of things, that they might not agree with them, and they might, like if I was a Thai AI developer, maybe I would sort of try to tweak that a little bit or change those rules a little bit, where it's like, well, no, not everyone is equal. It's like that old George Orwell novel Animal Farm, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, So is there an element of that if we can imagine like a Thai influence on these sort of things?
It's going down very fast, and everyone who follows Thai politics for a while, they will see that there's a fight, a struggle going on for many years now between the younger generations and the older generations who try to hold on to whatever they find valuable, and they don't want to lose it. Basically, one important aspect in this fight is about what you just said. It's about the idea of equality of human beings. Traditionally, in old Siam, the society was strictly hierarchical.
Mm,
The king was on top. Below him is the royal family. Below them are the noblemen, the high-ranking officials, and so on. And below them, the middle-ranking, so on down to the pride, the very common people, the
mm,
farmers, and so on. This idea kind of was ingrained in Thai culture for a long time. But what
mm,
is very interesting, if you look at what is unfolding in the Thai political and cultural scene at this very moment, is that this picture is being dismantled, is being challenged,
yeah.
uh, especially by the younger generations. And it's the younger generations who are sitting in front of the computer, doing AI coding. Are they blindly following the direction of the West? I don't think so. But they would like to create a new Thailand, so to speak.
Mm,
This phrase "to create a new Thailand" was kind of a taboo just a few years ago. It's almost illegal to talk about that. But now the atmosphere is changing, so that it has become more commonplace. So I can talk about that. But these people, they, on the one hand, they are fully conscious of their national and cultural identity, and they want to assert, to put Thailand more, so that Thailand becomes more visible on the map.
mm,
Could be AI map, map of people doing AI and so on.
right.
And these people are doing that. So it's not a matter of following the West in all aspects, but they might have their own reason or their own ideas about how AI should be governed, how the system of governance of AI should be implemented,
Right.
and they can find themselves arguing with their colleagues from the US or Europe as to how AI should be governed.
It's interesting to think of I mean there's a lot of really high tech startups in Thailand doing some really cutting edge stuff, and they're getting a
Right.
lot of VC investment and overseas investment. But so it's interesting to think of them embedding Thai-ness into those
Mhm.
sort of things. I
Mhm.
mean, we often hear the Ministry of Culture talking about Thai-ness, even though it's really hard to define and things like that. But you don't often think of Thai-ness being embedded in these like high tech, like fintech solutions or transportation solutions or things like that. But we're starting to see it, as you said, the younger generation are really sort of starting to carve out their own identity. The old generations be damned, they're going to do it their way.
Yeah. Uh, well, I tend to be optimistic, and it's my personality, and I tend to be conciliatory. I don't want to see kind of black and white conflicts. One side must beat the other to the death. So in the end, maybe this is what I hope. There could be a kind of a mixture, a blend between the old and the new. I don't
Mm,
know how that will look like as
mm,
yet, but if we can search for an example, I think what is happening in Japan could be an example. Uh, on the one hand, Japan can be, they have retained many aspects of their traditional
Yeah.
rituals and activities. Like they still have the emperor and all kinds of rituals surrounding the emperor, because the emperor is kind of a high priest of the Shinto religion.
Sure.
But on the other hand, as we know, right, Japan is a very technologically advanced country. So one way is to look at Japan as an example, but maybe Thailand will find its own way. But in any case, it must be a mixture, a blend between the old and the new, in such a way that the old is still there, because this is for the interest of everybody, for the country to advance itself. It cannot shut itself, like a hermit. That's not possible. Yeah.
That's right. As we're wrapping up here, I want you to sort of try to imagine something with me. There's a really interesting novel by an author called Paolo Bacigalupi called The Wind-Up Girl.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes place in a future Bangkok, 300 or 400 years in the future.
Oh, it's
and
in Bangkok?
It's it's a very cool book.
I must look this up.
Yeah, and in that book, Thailand has emerged to become the global leader in genetic seed banks, and they control the sort of gene futures of all the crops around the world, and plants and medicines and things like that. So imagine for a minute that these AI programs, these gigantic companies, had been based in Thailand and had evolved out of Thailand and had been inspired by Thailand's ethics and culture. How would they be different from what exists today? It's a big question, I know. It's a big what if.
Yeah, it's a big question, as you said. I think what will happen, and we can look at the company in the future being imbued with the values that we get from Buddhism, compassion, not harming other sentient beings, and the desire for all sentient beings to be happy, and the commitment to create happy condition for everyone. I think that is Buddhism, and that is what Buddhism can offer to the world. So if such company is kind of, their values are informed by Buddhism, that can create a kind of a big difference.
I think a lot of these AI programs would probably be more fun to use if they had a little bit of Sanuk embedded in them.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So last question then, just really quick. You said you're an optimist on these kind of things. Are you sort of optimistic about ethics and Thailand and where they intersect and technology in Thailand going forward? I know there's some websites that are not available in Thailand. There's some things we're not allowed to talk about. Are you optimistic about how those things will develop and the opportunities they'll give to people in Thailand?
Oh yes. Only that we need a bit more time. But if we look at how the situation has been unfolding, right now, and compare that to like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there is a lot of change, and much of this change has been on the positive side. The parliament just passed the law, allowing same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
So it's a total go ahead into that direction, and I cannot imagine this happening just like 5 years or 10 years ago. Just the change is very fast. So yeah, I'm kind of optimistic, but what we need to do is to convince maybe the old vanguards, so to speak, who still hold a lot of power, to convince them. We need to convince them that Thailand is not going to go away. The country is still here. Thai people are still here. The culture is still here. We only change so that we can still be a player in the contemporary world. So if we convince them, then I think the change can be much smoother.
Technology is a solution. There we go. We can use that to enact change.
Yeah, right.
Well, Kunsorat, thank you so much for chatting. It's very interesting. I don't often, my mind doesn't automatically go to philosophy and technology when I think of Thailand, but I think there's some really interesting discussions to be had around it. So thank you for chatting.
Yeah. I enjoyed talking. Yeah.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And enjoy your retirement. Don't work too hard, even though you're still going around doing all these interesting talks and things like that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, Kunsorat, thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Dude, I should have been the one to do this interview. I actually teach an ethics class, dude.
Yeah, I know. It came together quickly, and he was available, and I was available, so we jumped online and did it. So
behind my back.
Behind your back.
Cheating on me. You're cheating on me behind my back.
I'm cheating on you with an ethics professor. That's right. But it would have been interesting to get your insights in that too. But I mean, Dr. Soraj is very very experienced and really knows a lot about this stuff. His books are. Well,
I want to. I want to talk to him. I think I would have different questions than you had. I mean, not that there's something wrong with yours, but I teach. I have to teach some Buddhism in my philosophy class, and then I do teach an ethics class. I've never really taught anything about AI, but I do try to keep up with it. It's such an interesting topic, and he seemed like a really nice guy.
Yeah, and again, I was really fascinated about the idea of we grew up in Western cultures with the all men are created equal kind of thing.
Sure.
I'm not sure, does that translate fairly across in like Thai thought, in Thai culture, and Asian culture? I couldn't help but thinking about, like I mentioned in the interview, of the caste system in India, where
sure.
That's definitely not true.
Well, in general, I think that Asian culture is more hierarchical, although that stuff definitely did exist in the past in the West. It's more of an Enlightenment thing. The last 300 years in Europe, the whole everyone's equal thing. But I do think it's less true in Asia. I mean, it's not just India. It's also in Confucianism. There's a lot of hierarchical pairs, like husband and wife, and it's always someone ranked above someone else. So I do think that is the difference. But I don't know. It's like, with my students, since they're studying in English and they're actually learning about the West, I feel like they've absorbed a lot of Western ideas.
That was one of my takeaways from this too. Now, I really wanted to get to the differences between Eastern and Western ideas about ethics and AI and things like that. But the more we talked about it, the more I started thinking like, well, maybe they're sort of like, they're starting to converge, because the concept of
sure.
Respect and equality and treating people equally is sort of becoming. Do you think it's much more?
Yeah, I mean, the world definitely is just more globalized and connected, and so those ideas do transfer more. So I don't know, man. It might have helped if you had someone who actually taught ethics, who was actually in the interview, and could ask appropriate questions. That might have been interesting.
Was it unethical of me to not wait for you to be available?
I think it was. I mean, that's just my take after having taught ethics for like 10 years. But, that's just my opinion.
What would I know? I've just taught ethics for 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I want to know. Anyway, super nice guy. So I want to say thank you to him, and hopefully I'll get to meet him in the future at some point.
Yeah, that would be cool. Thank you, Dr. Soraj, for coming on the show. A pleasure to talk to you, and maybe we'll have a chat again one day.
Cool.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with, no matter how we feel about it. And this week I got something for you, Ed, right off the bat.
Cool.
I was picking up my boy from school today, and we got a taxi, coming home in the taxi. And he had a sort of an iPad mini thing on his dashboard playing a Thai soap opera. And he was sort of glancing as he drove. What do you think of this? Does this unnerve you? Do you find it sort of like funny and charming, or?
No, it's bad. I know exactly what you're talking about. I feel like we went through a phase where we talked a lot about taxis. It's been a couple of years now.
Yeah, we had a whole taxi growth spurt.
Yeah, we haven't talked about taxis too much, but I still take taxis almost every day, and I think it's horrible. I know exactly what you're talking about. They have a screen. Sometimes it's just their phone, but then sometimes it's like a cheap, almost like mini flat screen TV. Sometimes it is something like an iPad mini, and and again, it's usually soap operas that they're watching while they're driving. it's horrible. I'm guessing it's actually against the law. As we've said many times, Thailand's laws usually are reasonable. It's just they're not enforced. So I'm guessing it's not legal to use another screen while you're driving.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I've never had a problem, or as far as I know, it's never caused an accident. But I find it awkward because what do you do? What do you do when a taxi driver is kind of doing something you don't like? I always feel limited, and like I really want to tell him, like, could you please watch the road? But if they haven't made a mistake, if there hasn't been a near accident, I don't know if it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I hate the person I become in the back of a taxi, because I become all nervous. Like, oh, I didn't do the seatbelt yet. So, but if I do it up now, he's going to think that it's a reaction to something he's doing and maybe get mad at me. Like,
that's right.
That. One of my friends, his solution was, if the driver was driving erratically or like stopping and starting too much, he would just say, "Excuse, like, can you drive a bit better? Because I'm going to be sick." And it's like an immediate improvement.
Occasionally, I tell them to slow down if they're driving really crazy.
I would too. But for the TVs, I mean, my knee-jerk reaction would be hard loathe, because that's extremely dangerous and stupid. But on the other hand, I never tell them to turn it off. So
yeah, I mean, I'm going to say I'm with you. I'm a loathe on principle, just because it's unsafe.
Right.
But I've never said anything about it.
Yeah.
But it's wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
The only thing to say about it, it's just wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Hard loathe.
Double loathe. Alrighty, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Tom Grogan for lending us his support at the show shout-out level. Greg, what did you find out about Tom?
Well, I found out something quite interesting about our buddy Tom, and surprised me, because Ed, I thought that we've been doing this podcast for 7 seasons now, and before you, there was a few more seasons. So in total, we've been on the air for 13 years. Oh my God. And, you do that for any amount of time, and you sort of start to think that, I think I got this wrapped up. I was the originator, the OG, but not the case. Tom sent me a message, and he says, I've been a listener lurker from the beginning, way back in your season 1, episode 1, when it was you and Tony.
Wow.
So he's been around for a long time.
Wow.
Long timer here like yourselves, and I believe Ed and I share a Thai relocation anniversary. The question mark. When did you come to Thailand?
August 2000.
Okay, well, he said, I moved to Thailand in October of 2001 for a teaching contract, and much like you guys, just never left. In fact, I used to do a podcast of my own back in the day that I started in 2008.
Wow, it's got you beat, dude.
Got us beat by 2 years. It was more of a personal journal format, so the family back home could keep up with what I was doing with my life here, as there were no smartphones, Facebook, or Google Maps. I don't know how we survived. You guys started the podcast in 2010, and I think I did my last episode in 2012. I've always enjoyed your show, and I figured it was high time to contribute. Big love to you guys from a longtime fan. Isn't that nice?
Very cool. Very nice of him, and we got to give him credit. He did start before we did.
So he was like already in a podcast old hand and shutting things down.
That's right.
When me and Evo were just babies. Actually, me and Tony were still on the air in 2012. We were just babies, just still trying to figure out what we were doing, talking through pantyhose filters into some old crappy microphones we bought. So, Tom, we bow down to you, the OG podcaster.
For sure. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for your support, man.
Alrighty, a final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that will feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKKGreg. Thank you for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Welcome back to the office after Songkran. See you back here next week.
No doubt.